Yesterday, the Supreme Court heard arguments regarding a law in Louisiana that would require abortion doctors to have admitting privileges to local hospitals. Pro-life advocates of the law argue that the requirement protects women with emergency medical care in case of abortion complications. But abortion supporters argue the law is simply a way to make it more difficult for women seeking abortions to obtain them. Joining me now to discuss the law is its sponsor, pro-life Democrat and Louisiana State Senator Katrina Jackson. Thank you for joining us, Katrina.
Oh, thanks for having me.
Now,
you guys have such beautiful weather in Washington.
Oh, well, it's not too bad in Louisiana. I was there a few days ago. It's beautiful. You're joining us from Monroe. Now, 4 years ago, the Supreme Court struck down an almost identical law in the state of Texas. Why is this Louisiana law different from the Texas statute?
Well, the Louisiana state interest is actually different. The law is crafted a little different, but our state interest is extremely different because in the state of Louisiana, for a number of years, we have required admitting privileges for physicians performing any procedures in ambulatory surgical centers. And we also believe that it was a requirement for abortion facilities, but because Louisiana has a separate part of the law designated for abortion facilities, we didn't reference it. So it was actually a cleanup bill for the original intent of the admitting privileges law. And it was different from Texas because Texas had never required admitting privileges in outpatient facilities that performed any procedures. Louisiana has always thought it was paramount to the health and safety of its constituents that a physician have admitting privileges for a quick response if there was a complication during the procedure. And people have been asking, well, what is admitting privileges? When you break it down to the average person who doesn't practice medicine, who hasn't read this bill, is this, that if something happens while a physician is performing an outpatient procedure on you, that physician has admitting privileges with a hospital, which means he or she can pick up the phone and call and say, listen, I'm sending patient A. I'm sending them by ambulatory transport or by car. This is what happened, and this is what we need you to do. And that's really important. But when you think about it in the area of reproductive health for women, right, it's extremely important because there's a few scenarios that happen, complications when a woman is having an abortion. Her womb can be punctured, right, or she could begin to hemorrhage. You have a very short window of time to correct this issue before, number one, the woman requires a hysterectomy, and number two, before she's not able to ever have children again. And so you're talking about doctors receiving admitting privileges so that they can be in contact with a hospital within close proximity if something happened. So some people have said, you know, what's different? That's what's different about Louisiana, is that our state has always shown an interest.
Yeah, the Supreme Court is hearing this case, and the defense claim, look, you've only got 2 doctors in the state that would be able to meet this law's requirements, and therefore this will unduly burden the women seeking an abortion. How would you respond to that argument?
Well, when we first started the case, they said it was only 1 doctor because there was only 1 doctor with admitting privileges. Since that time, what we found was that no doctor, the testimony during our legislative hearings is that no doctor besides that 1 doctor had applied for admitting privileges. Second, since this case has started, 2 others have applied for admitting privileges. 1 was granted them, and 1 applied to a Catholic hospital, although there was a hospital that had granted admitting privileges to the other physician in this case. He didn't apply there. And so what I've said to people is that it's not that they couldn't receive admitting privileges, it's that they didn't care to receive admitting privileges. And at some point, once the second doctor received admitting privileges, the rest of them didn't apply because it would have made their case moot and their argument of no validity. And so what I feel that's happening right now is in order not to meet the requirements of this law, these doctors are not applying for admitting privileges. They didn't before because the law required it for every other doctor but those performing abortions. And so that's how I've responded. And lastly, it's this, is that in a time of emergency, a woman wants a quick response. Anyone does. I really feel, and I've said this in interviews before, is that if I had regulated an area of vasectomies, I wouldn't have been criticized. And everyone would have been standing up saying that makes sense. Well, we have to hold doctors to the same standard of care when we look at reproductive health of women. And so that's been my response. If you don't want to take care of the women in time of complication, if you don't want to maximize to the fullest your ability to take care of them, right? Then don't perform abortions. Don't do anything in our state, because Louisiana has a long history of protecting its patients against doctors who do things and can't take care of their patients. Lastly, I told them this,
I'm
sorry, I get so passionate about this.
I love that. No, I love your passion. Look, Madam Senator, before I run out of time, I need to tell you about this. As you know, the composition of the Supreme Court has changed with the two Trump appointees, Gorsuch and Kavanaugh, are now on the court. Kennedy sided with the majority last time that Texas law, which was very similar to this one, was heard. That may change the outcome here, how the court rules. At a rally yesterday outside the Supreme Court, New York Senator Chuck Schumer addressed the crowd. He said this to the new justices. Watch.
I want to tell you, Gorsuch, I want to tell you, Kavanaugh, you have released the whirlwind, and you will pay the price.
Now, Mr. Schumer said he used the wrong words, and he apologized for that. Your reaction to that statement?
I definitely think he used the wrong words. What he did and what his statement was, and even using the wrong words, was to incite something against these justices that somehow allows his supporters and his followers to believe that it's okay to retaliate against the justices based on them doing their job. As elected officials, we never have the right, nor is it proper to ever say those words. When I first became a pro-life Democrat, when I first filed my first legislation, I had it to happen to me with an employee of Planned Parenthood. And let me tell you what it does, so that legislators and others are very sensitive. I couldn't go in and out of the city of New Orleans for a while without a police escort in the state that I'm elected in, because someone said that any support of abortion should knock me over the head if they saw me. People take this seriously. We have to be very careful with our words. So I'll admonish any elected official to be very careful with your word, because people respect you and they will follow what you say.
Before I let you go, you are an endangered species. You just mentioned you're a pro-life Democrat. And among Democratic presidential candidates, it's clear they really don't have much room for pro-life Democrats in the party. Is that stance going to hurt Democrats on the national level, in your opinion?
Yes, it will. And I'm praying that at some point, because there are some candidates who really want to help people in the same way we do in other areas, that they come forward and realize that the Democratic Party is the party of the big tent, which means we're the party of diverse ideas, and that they come back to the center of this thing and begin to welcome pro-life Democrats back to the party. I would say that if they don't, they lose a large segment of the Democratic Party when you realize that 1 out of every 3 Democrats is pro-life.
Wow, I did not know that. Senator Katrina Jackson, I thank you so much for being here. We could talk all day. We'll do it again soon, I hope.
Yes, most definitely. Have a wonderful evening.
Thank you, you too.